Good afternoon. Coming to you today to talk to you about Module 5, the barriers to using Web 2.0. I think there are a lot of really good things in this article or this chapter and things that are definitely applicable not just to my field, teaching agricultural education, but that we can carry into our work as administrators in the future as well. I believe one of the most important things to understand is that when students leave high school, typically they are not being prepared properly to use the internet and the World Wide Web, and they're leaving without the proper training that really makes them workforce ready or ready to move on to college even. And the sad part is that some schools aren't even working to try to resolve that problem or fixing that issue. And that's something that we really need to look at and try to figure out a solution for, because sticking with the status quo simply is not an acceptable solution. We need to realize that regardless of how hard it is for us as teachers to find the time to work on it, we owe it to our students to do the best job possible. And some of the issues reading through the article that I was able to pull out are that students have limited access in their homes. Some of them do not have internet access at all. Some of them have a really slow connection. I live out in the country. The quality of internet I can get out here, wireless internet I can get, is incredibly slow. It takes, to load one of these videos takes almost 4 hours, sometimes as long as 5 hours. And I know a lot of my students are in the same situation if they live out in a rural area. Another thing is the lack of teacher training and the little time that we have as teachers to practice and implement the new technology that we have been trained on. So we have multiple issues going on there, but I do believe as we go throughout this PowerPoint and as we read this chapter that there is hope to resolve this crisis and to see the problem get fixed and rectified. Question 1 asks us to take a look at the digital divide. And the divide can be resolved. As the illustration in the bottom corner shows, we just have to figure out a way to build a bridge through that divide or over that divide. Resolving the divide between the haves and have-nots in terms of technology is going to require time, money, and probably most importantly, dedication. But not just dedication from students. It requires dedication from teachers, from administration. We have to be willing to fix the problem. We can't just talk about it. We can't just say we want to fix the problem. We actually have to have some follow through. And I felt that this point most properly fit with the ISTE standard 2D, which states to ensure the effective practices in the study of technology and its infusion across the curriculum. My interpretation of that is that it's not enough for the ag department or the math department or English department to implement new technology and new ways of teaching. It has to be a school-wide effort so that it truly goes across the curriculum, so that students are being exposed to it at least at some level in every single classroom. If we are going to be successful in preparing students for the 21st century, we have to figure out a way to branch the divide. We can't accept any longer that students who don't have internet at home just need to be left behind or find alternative activities. As a school, it's our obligation to help them find a way to get those assignments done and to get them exposure to Web 2.0, and so that way they are prepared for college or the workforce. However, I do think that when it comes to bridging the digital divide, we need to understand that we'll never reach 100%, meaning that we will probably never see in our society where 100% of our students will have access at home to the internet or to technology. Just based off the socioeconomic status of certain families and students, that's probably not ever going to happen. And then obviously there's other religious minority groups who do not believe in using technology or the internet, but that's a separate issue that we certainly have no control over. When it comes to developing those skill sets that our students need to be successful in the 21st century, I think there should be two primary focuses. One being making sure that they're college and career ready. Obviously, we have reached a point in our society where we finally accept that not all student needs to go to college. However, even those students who don't go on to university or college still have still have a need to use technology and still need to be trained on it. And getting them ready, that skill set does require a primary focus on technology. And some of the specific skills that I felt we needed to be working on developing with our students are problem solving. As classroom teachers, we can all think of times when we had given a student an assignment or a project to work on that required some level of problem solving, and sometimes those students just shut down. They're not being taught how to problem solve at home, or they're not being taught how to problem solve in the earlier grades, and that creates some problems in high school when we give them those challenging assignments and they don't know how to problem solve or work through it. We also need to work on flexibility. Students are used to having things so rigid. They go to classes on a bell system. They have assignments due at certain dates for certain points. And we've really built them into our education system into being rigid to where we've lost the ability to be flexible. And I think that's a valuable skill, not just for students to learn, but also to implement back into our schools. Students also have a strong need to learn social skills. Students spend so much time looking at their cell phones or playing video games that they've lost the ability to interact with each other and to carry on a meaningful conversation. We also need to develop leadership, not just from a technological standpoint in terms of getting students that are willing to be leaders and problem solvers when using technology, but we have a void in our society right now of young people who are willing to accept leadership roles. And I think all four of those, in order for students to be successful and develop those specific skills, they need to be self-motivators. We were talking the other day in our the teachers I eat lunch with, that we have a lot of students leaving our high school and taking online classes through virtual high schools. And unfortunately, most of those students end up dropping out of the virtual high school and coming back because they lack the self-motivation to complete the task. So I think if we can develop those 5 specific skills in students, then we'll go a long ways towards making them 21st century ready. In terms of my interaction with the global economy, there's more options out there than ever before. I went to K-State with some people that were from Asia and some from Europe, and we still interact online through Facebook or Twitter. And so it's given me the opportunity to connect with those former friends and classmates who have now been relocated or have moved back to their home countries, and I think that's a phenomenal opportunity that technology has given us. In addition, I run a farm, and we purchase supplies from all over the world. We raise pigs, and sometimes what we need we can't find close to home, and so I'll go online and buy it from the cheapest supplier, which oftentimes is not located in the United States. And finally, from a professional standpoint, from the farm and also from a teaching aspect, it's given me the opportunity to interact the web has with ag teachers all over the world. So if I have a question, if I'm doing a unit on something that I'm not familiar with, whether that's dealing with floriculture or horticulture, whatever the case might be, I can seek help from ag teachers that I know are professionals in that, oftentimes off the East Coast of the United States. So it does give us opportunities from a professional networking standpoint as well. The training I would specifically need in order to integrate more technology into my classroom, one thing that I was talking with a friend about yesterday is that we have so many online reports due as agriculture teachers. We have to turn CTE reports into the state every spring, when we renew our teaching license. And then from an FFA standpoint, the student organization that I oversee, all of those reports are due online. And that's just something that it seems like those databases of those online reporting systems change every couple of years. And I have a hard time keeping up with that and figuring out the new system. So some training in terms of how to use new technology, how to use some of that would be very valuable for me. And finally, just video creation and processing. If something doesn't go right in one of these videos that we shoot, is there a way to go back in and edit it? Things like that. I took some classes on that in college, but most of that information is now leaked out of my head. So I don't necessarily remember how to do all that. So just having a half-day in-service or something like that would be greatly beneficial. Also, what apps are available on smartphones, whether that's an iPhone or an Android, that could be integrated into the classroom. And that's one of those deals that, once again, if I had more time to just sit down and play around on my phone, or even have students look around on their iPhones one day and see what apps we have that maybe we could pull in and integrate in the classroom, would be a great benefit. Palo USD 368 is mostly equipped, but it's not equal. The elementary schools have more technology. They've got more access to technology in the elementary schools than we do in the high school. The high school is planning on going to 1-to-1 January 2017, so that will help a great deal. And the high school does have access to some pretty unique things. We have a Torchmate CNC now in my welding shop. Wood shop teacher has a CNC router, and we just got a 3D printer down in our department. So we do have a lot of technology that's helping these students that are looking at going into the workforce become prepared or become ready for the 21st century, but we definitely need more technology in Paola. Advantages of Web 2.0: creates a lot of new learning opportunities, whether that's through blogs, online tutorials, worldwide interaction with students that are maybe going to school in Japan or elsewhere. And it also gives us as teachers the opportunity to use more authentic assessments, have students create websites or Facebook pages. They could even create their own blog or YouTube video. Now, the downside of that is if other schools are like Paola, most of those websites have been blocked. Students don't have access to educational blogs or to Facebook or even YouTube. And actually teachers at Palo don't have access to most of those as well. So it does, we go back and talk about the previous slide, is Palo equipped? Even if we're fully equipped like we would like to see, most of those websites that could be beneficial have been blocked. And so that's something that we would have to work out with administration and our technology department is, there are some advantages here. How do we make them available to students? Obviously, if there's advantages, there are disadvantages, unfortunately, and the internet can be, if used improperly, an evil thing. As I mentioned, the limited teacher control. We can't always see what our students are doing. I've got an average of 30 students in a class, 28 to 30 students in a class, and so it's hard for me to get around and monitor every single student every minute of that class period. And so part of it comes down to how much can we trust our students and what sort of software is out there to help us monitor what they're doing. Also, we have cyberbullying, which was mentioned in the chapter that we read. And then I think also just the misinformation that can be found on websites. Students in my class in the fall semester do research papers, and it always amazes me the misinformation that they find on the internet. Somebody created a website advocating against genetically modified organisms or against the use of antibiotics in livestock. Those are two subjects that would pertain to my class, and my students will find those websites that basically bash agriculture, and they just take them at face value. They don't know how to do the research to fact check and see if everything they're reading is truthful. Two other potential downsides could be identity theft. I don't know how prevalent that would be in schools if students aren't putting personal information out there, which hopefully they're not. And they shouldn't be using credit cards, but that potential still exists. And finally, as I've mentioned several times, the limited access in homes. I know I've got a lot of students that don't even have a computer at home. Most students do have a smartphone, but once again, you have some limited options there in terms of what you can do, and it would also depend on their family's data plan, what options they had. And those are things that we need to keep in mind as we move forward and try to integrate more technology into our schools, is making sure that our students have equal access to that technology, and students who don't should not be penalized. I personally don't have any experience with students or myself being cyberbullied or inappropriate internet use. It's never been an issue in my classroom that I'm aware of. The worst cases I can think of were girls shopping for prom dresses and boys shopping for trucks or tractors on Craigslist. Both of those are things that I can tolerate in small doses. Typically just try to redirect towards the correct behavior. If they don't, they will suffer the consequences. And I think that my interpretation of ISTE Standard 5B, which states to promote, model, and establish policies for safe, legal, and ethical use of digital information and technology, ties directly into that. Using the internet correctly and making sure that if they don't, there are consequences. So all in all, I felt like this article was a great read. It was a article or a chapter that I felt offered a lot of benefits, and one that, definitely something I'm going to hang on to, because Web 2.0 is here to stay. Obviously, we're going to continue to make advancements in technology, but we need to be working as teachers to figure out ways to integrate it into our classrooms. It's going to take time, it's going to take money, but it's going to take, more importantly than anything, what I talked about at the very beginning. We've got to be dedicated. Our students are willing to use the technology. They need to be properly trained how to do so, and that is upon us as teachers and future administrators to make sure that we always value our students and make sure that their learning is our top priority. Thank you for watching. Hope everybody's having a good spring semester, and we will see you later.